Yo, it's dark in here. Let me adjust this lighting. It always take a second to adjust. There you go. What's going on, everybody? I'm Marcus here. This is a really quick video. I still got on like gym clothes, but this is a really quick video. We're gonna dive into it. It's about hey, this is day 7, 8 of the furlough. Hey, and me as a guy who's furloughed, I was like, you know what? I need to make a video about this. But the White House just released a memo that essentially says that employees who are furloughed are not necessarily entitled to back pay. Now, I know that's going to make a lot of people's heads explode because one common thing that we always saw as a matter of course, once Congress agreed to a continuing resolution or a budget or what have you, persons would be paid back pay. But this White House memo essentially suggests that employees who are required to work but are not getting paid are entitled to back pay, but employees who are furloughed and not required to work are not entitled to back pay. So when I saw this article, I was like, you know what? Let me take a look at what's going on because I'm not an employment law expert. I'm just an attorney. But I'm not an employment law expert, but I do know how to read. And so I was like, well, let me take a quick look and see what's going on. First, my personal opinion. This is just my personal opinion. I think a lot of the talk about layoffs and even this are what we call in the legal profession puffery, or what some people may call cap, is just a little bit of gamesmanship to potentially leverage negotiations. We haven't seen the mass layoffs come as of yet. And prior to the furlough, government agencies were scrambling to hire back people that they had already terminated early on in January of this year at the Doge Chainsaw Massacre. With that being said, let's take a look to see what the actual law is. Now, essentially, there is a law on the books. I believe it's called the Government Employees Fair Treatment Act, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look that up to make sure I'm not capping the. Yeah, so there is the law on the books called the Government Employees Fair Treatment Act of 2019. Keep in mind, 2019 is important because in 2019, President Trump was the president of the United States. So this is something that was essentially okayed by him back in 2019. Now, again, there is a law that provides for retroactive pay, but there are some issues. I don't think it's going to be a really big deal. I think everybody will get their back pay. Y'all let me know in the comments if you think people who are furloughed, who aren't working, should be entitled to back pay or not. But essentially, this law provides that furlough employees during the lapse in appropriations do actually get funding. But there's a big but, which we all respect and like. There's a big but here. The law guarantee is conditional and subject to legal and practical constraints. I guess more specifically, this law was passed in January 2019. It's 31 USC 1341. And it says employees who are furloughed or who are required to work but don't get paid during the lapse must be compensated for the period of the lapse on the earliest date possible after the lapse ends. In simpler terms, Congress restored funding. The law says that federal employees affected shall be paid for the missed pay periods. The Office of Personnel Management guidance also reflects this, that after a lapse in appropriation funding, that furlough employees will get back pay. Why the White House is probably saying this isn't 100% ironclad, again, I think this and the mass layoffs are just a negotiation tool that's being used because we haven't seen the mass layoffs come to fruition yet. But even though the Government Employees Fair Treatment Act of 2019 establishes a framework for back pay, there are several important limitations that could be considered ambiguous if the White House is arguing that furloughed employees who aren't working are entitled to back pay. First, the law ties the obligations to pay to the actual passage of appropriations. So I think that one is easy. If Congress doesn't enact funding, then there's no authority to pay. That's the situation that we are in right now. Even if, and this is just an argument that some who are interpreting this White House memo, even if the Government Employees Fair Treatment Act says shall be paid, it doesn't create an independent funding source. So it says that, hey, people who are furloughed will be paid, but it doesn't establish an independent funder and funding source. It depends on future appropriation bills. And if Congress refuses to expressly include funds, then that would interfere with furloughed employees' potential to get paid. The current administration is arguing that the government employees funding authorizes back pay but does not appropriate it, meaning that agencies pay only if Congress expressly gives the money in the appropriations. I think that argument is not a strong argument, and I'm going to tell y'all why I think it'll fail. Legal challenges, clearly unions and others are already gearing up to challenge in court if the administration and government agencies are withholding back pay. Now, there are some funding streams and persons who are exempt who are deemed essential, but really this is focusing on the employees who are furloughed who are not required to go to work. Now, this is why I don't think it's a strong argument. Why I don't think there's anything to worry about. I think everyone who's in my position, it's a 95.5% chance that you'll be getting back pay. The interpretation dispute that the administration is going to lean on is that any back pay that's authorized, that statute from 2019 doesn't appropriate the funds. So it's saying that even though this legislation says furloughed employees who aren't working are entitled to back pay, it gives no mechanism for those funds to be allocated. So it squarely puts the onus on Congress to enact the funding. I think that's a flawed argument. The reason I think that argument is flawed is because when Congress passes a continuing resolution, it funds the government generally at the levels that it was already funded at in order to keep operations moving forward so they can figure out a long-term solution. When the government is funded to keep operations moving forward based on what it was previously doing, all of those back pay periods where an employee didn't work are already allocated into that funding. So let's say the government is shut down for 30 days and Congress says, okay, we came to some resolution. When they come to that resolution for a continuing resolution to keep things funded, the monies that are appropriated already include those pay periods within that 30 days that were already missed. So I don't think that that's the strongest argument. I think the law is clear. It says all employees, to include furloughed employees who aren't working and furloughed employees who are working but aren't getting paid, are going to be or are entitled to back pay, even though it doesn't expressly create a source of appropriations to fund this. I think by default, once a continuing resolution is passed, those monies are included. I think in order for this to pass, a continuing resolution would have to be passed, and it would have to expressly say that this continuing resolution does not include appropriations to issue back pay to furloughed employees, because we can only assume, based on what we've seen historically, that continuing resolutions by default include appropriations to pay the funding for furloughed employees who didn't work. That has always been the case. That kind of set the establishment. I think the language in the statute that says all employees furloughed, not working, furloughed, and working are entitled to back pay. So I think it's a tough argument to be had. And let's just keep it a buck. Let's just use a little bit of common sense. There's about 750,000 employees who are furloughed. Let's multiply that by 6. That's going to be probably the number of affected households within the United States, probably actually more than that. With speedballing into a midterm election cycle, it would be a very, very, very bad look for that to happen. I think it's all just a negotiation piece. We call it in the legal world puffery. You got to puff out your chest and do some things and say some things to try to tip the negotiating chips in your favor. So we'll see. Like, I haven't seen mass layoffs occur yet. I think that's puffery. I think this is another puffery piece. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. Do you think this is just something that's being said as a negotiating chip? Do you think this is something that's actually going to come into fruition? And I think more importantly, do you think employees who are furloughed and not working, do you think they should be entitled to back pay? Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. Man, good luck. Trump is proving he don't give a damn about the law. It's what he says. Yeah, I mean, like, okay, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know, man. We could agree to disagree on that point. Yeah, I think he does stretch the limits of his powers, which I think any president with sharp should do. I mean, I'm honestly, if you're the opposing party, you should be taking notes as to what's going on right now, so you can store that in your bin for ammunition. But I don't know. I think that I don't know. I don't think that, like, all right, what law was expressly violated with no wiggle room? I mean, I don't know. Like, all right, let's look at the troops in Oregon. He wanted to deploy troops in Oregon. The judge came out and said, no, you can't do it. Then he tried to call the National Guard in for California. The judge came back and said, no, you can't do that either. Like, I don't know. I think there is checks and balances. I mean, we could go into Roe v. Wade and all of that, but that was the Supreme Court defining what the law is. That's a little bit different, in my opinion, than, okay, the law says A, I'm going to do B, and I'm going to stand on B no matter what. I mean, and a lot of times this administration is getting pushed back. The Eastern District of Virginia U.S. Attorney's Office wanted to indict James Comey. The U.S. Attorney was removed. The new one was put in their place. Right now, they can't get any prosecutors to push the case forward. Like, I don't know. I think in some regards, now I can't speak for the politicians, but at DOJ, people are standing on the fact that they don't want to potentially risk losing their license for some type of ethical breach. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But I think it's, I mean, hey, I don't know. I think the layoffs and I think this are just a negotiation tool. The minute the layoffs actually come, and I'll be honest, even with the layoffs, I think there's actually a little bit more flexibility in the layoffs, because I'm right now, as jacked up as it is or could be, I don't think that the layoffs and the firings are 100% outside of the authority of the executive branch. And I'm not saying how it's done is correct, but I don't think layoffs and terminations are 100% outside of the authority of the executive branch. And I think courts have kind of taken that position in some aspect. And well, I think it's just a bargaining tool. The minute I see mass layoffs, I'll be like, that's not a bargaining tool. But the layoffs, if they were to happen, I think that's more likely than this happened. But I don't think either is going to happen. So we'll see. We'll spin back around and we'll spin the block on this in 3 weeks or whenever the government opens up to see if there was mass layoffs. And I'll let y'all know if I receive back pay in that. I think the Republicans will stick to their guns. And if this goes longer than it should, they will let people go and people won't get paid. Now, that's two things. I don't know. I think if you had to ask me who's winning the battle at this point, I think that a couple of Democrats have came over, but a couple of Republicans seem prone to bend. You got Marjorie Taylor Greene posting on her Twitter feed like, yo, we should do something about these subsidies because people's health care are going to double, including my sons. It's funny that, they change their mind when it impacts them. Historically, Democrats have been the one to fold like lawn chairs and envelopes, but I think that this one may play out. I don't know. I think this one, I don't, I think everybody's point is valid, and historically, Republicans do stand their ground. But I think this one, if the Democrats don't cave, I think the longer this goes, the more pressure build on Republicans to pass something. So, what if I had to say how I'm interpreting this to play out? I think the Obama era subsidies are probably going to get extended to prevent people healthcare coverage from doubling or tripling. Uh, I don't think mass layoffs are going to come. Now, we might see layoffs. They may find some obscure agency out there like US Aid and lay off, 100, 200 people. But mass layoffs, I don't think mass layoffs are going to come. I just, maybe I'm just an optimist, but I know that agencies were reeling from staffing levels. They didn't have enough people to do the work, and they were on the verge of bringing back employees. As I was actually on the elevator like the last day at the office with a guy who was like, he was a contractor. He's like, man, I just started Monday, now it's Wednesday, and we furloughed. So, like, I don't know. The agencies are hiring. They are bringing on contractors. They are bringing on government employees in limited capacity, even though there's a hiring freeze technically. But I don't know. I think it's all cap. I don't think the mass layoffs are going to happen. They may be layoffs, but they said mass layoffs. Mass layoffs and layoffs are two different things. I don't think there's going to be mass layoffs, and I definitely don't think. I might not be wrong about that one. I feel 95% positive when things go back up. Furloughed employees who didn't work are going to get back pay. If not, I mean, we will see. You want to talk about a blue wave? It'll probably likely be a blue wave coming because that just impacts too many families. That's a lot of votes in a lot of states. And I don't know. Maybe I'm an optimist. Maybe I'm a glass half full type of guy. Yo, that's it. I just wanted to hop on here real quick and talk about it. Hey, times is tough out there. The only person who's gonna give a damn about your situation is you. So do what you can to reduce your expenses, get rid of things you don't really need, make sure you have mechanisms and options to be able to get any type of income from any other source legally that can help hold you over until all these things shake out. Also, remember that we talked about this before, but a lot of financial institutions, they aren't doing it yet, but normally it starts 2 to 3 weeks after furlough. They'll offer interest-free loans for persons who've had federal deposits, I think 3 or more federal deposits consecutively prior to the furlough. That's what they use to confirm that you are, in fact, a federal employee, and they'll give out interest-free loans to account for your missed paychecks. So that is an option that people can use as well. Yo, as always, that's it for this video. Y'all take care. Y'all be blessed. Be safe. We're going to jump online a little bit later on. We're going to talk about subway surfing in New York, which is leading to people dying. It's actually ridiculous. Y'all be blessed. See y'all later. Peace.